as we get ready, we get ourselves pumped up for an exciting opportunity to learn from one another. There's a young man we're bringing to the stage who in my opinion, is one of the most dynamic advocates for change that we've seen, not only in Chicago, but across this country. This man has been doing political activism, teaching, as a recording artist. He's a husband. He's a father. He's our brother. This man has helped change the direction of what conversations should be like as it relates to what schools should be like. It is my honor. Really, it is my privilege to introduce to some of you, of course, but to present to most of you the Kenwood Oakland Community Organizer for Education, our dear brother. Show your love for the most powerful, strong voice that we've seen in a long time, Mr. G2 Brown. Yep. G2 Brown, y'all, G2 Brown.
Okay. Good morning. Good morning. I'm not a recording artist. I've been retired for a minute. So just so y'all know, I'm more like, but I am Zulu to the world blow up. Zulu. All right, to the world blow up. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is G2 Brown. Well, first I want to say I'm truly honored to be here with you today. So I'm going to let you know how this is going to go, all right? This is not my thing, this right here. So I'm going to read as much as I can, and when I throw it down, I just don't judge a brother, okay? All right. I would first want to say thank you to Tara and the Free Minds, Free People family for asking me to be the opening speaker. Don't take things like that lightly. When someone believes that you have something to offer to an event as important as this, we must take it seriously, and I do. As stated before, I serve the Kenwood Oakland Community Organization as its education organizer, but we are also proud members of the Alliance for Education Justice. Make some noise for AEJ. Grow Your Own Teachers Illinois. Make your own noise for GYO. Make some noise for GYO. Where we are actually addressing the teacher turnover and the elimination of teachers of color by producing our own teachers into our schools. Voices of Youth in Chicago Education, make some noise for Voice. So if you all heard about the group of young people who exposed the fact that Noble Street Charter School was taxing low-income African-American families to the tune of $200,000 a year, and pushing out young people at an alarming rate, that was Voice's work. If you heard that 10-day suspensions are no longer allowed in Chicago public schools, that was Voice's work, all right? So, not Voice by themselves, let me say. Voice was part of a coalition of several organizations that pulled that off, all right? And last but not least, I'd like to just say that we're also a part of the Emerging Alliance Journey for Justice, who I serve as the national director of. Journey for Justice is in 18 cities that are committed to fighting for community-driven school improvement. The whole question of school closings is a detail, but we know that we have to control the institutions in our neighborhood, and that's one of the main problems, that we live in communities where our schools are controlled by other interests, and we have to change that. So that's what Journey for Justice is committed to. So I'd like to share a few things with you today, a little bit about the history of who we are, kind of what got me into this work and kind of where we are. What we see is one of the main issues facing us today, which is the sabotage of public education in neighborhood schools, and then the direction that we're trying to move in, and hopefully some of us can move in that direction together. Because I know that there are many powerful organizers in the office, in the audience, in the office, what the heck? In the audience. I know that there are several strong activists in the audience, but one thing that often happens is we're working over here, we're on our island over here, we're on our island over here, but the people who are destroying our communities are coordinated, but they're not powerful. So I want you to understand the tone of what I'm going to say today. I'm a believer in the fact that I say it like this, that we have to be bold and audacious in our work. We have to push possibilities to the limit. And the only limitations we have are the ones that we accept. Too often in this work, we give the fight away before the fight jumps off. We give it away. There are people in this room that I've worked with, and we have stopped school closings. We have stopped schools from closing. April, raise your hand, sister. Raise your hand, April. Stand up, April, please. I'm putting you on blast. That's all right. Ms. Jefferson, please stand up. These are some members of Kenwood Oakland Community Organization. And I just want y'all to understand the power of spirit. You know, lots of times we conversate, we talk about it, but I'm gonna tell you what inspires me, what moves me. See, I was a volunteer at Cocoa in 1991 when I had just come out the music industry and I wanted to do something, and there was this place that I can actually organize with the people directly impacted. I wasn't going there to try to save nobody. I wasn't going there to try to say you should do this, but I could actually help to provide a space for the people in the neighborhood who are impacted by issues to address those issues. And so when I met Sister April in 2008, they were struggling to stop Mollison Elementary School from closing. None of them were activists, none of them were organizers, none of them got a check. They did what they were just mamas, right? And when I said, well, what y'all gonna do? I said, we gotta call some parents and we gotta organize to make sure that we see if the people really wanna fight, because you can't fake a fight. You can't manufacture a fight. If the fight is there, it's there. If it's not, you gotta live to fight another day. So we had a couple of days we made phone calls, and then it was a Tuesday night at 6 p.m. We walked into Mollison Gymnasium. It was 300 parents in the room, and students buzzing, and everybody educated on why that school shouldn't close. So when we went to Chicago Public Schools, we kicked down the door, and they stopped their school from closing. And the point I'm making is they didn't care how powerful Mayor Daley was, or they didn't care how much money they had. It was the will of the people. And that lesson taught me that we forget that sometimes. We forget that the thing that will beat money power is people power. Money power is an illusion. Money power can buy fake people power. But when fake people, does that make sense? Fake people power? But what fake people power don't have is a key element, love. See, you can't sit up and talk about you're going to carry out this, you know, I'm an organizer, I'm an activist, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have genuine love, which means a desire for unity, a commitment to be one with, if you don't have that love for that work, for the community you in, then you faking the funk. And what those sisters had was love. So this year, and then I promise I'm going to start reading. This year, when Chicago Public Schools closed 49 schools, right? We talked to people beforehand. We said, look, the board gonna vote against your schools. Don't even sit up here and expect them to vote differently. The Thursday after the board made that vote, in the park of Kennecott Park on 4434 South Lake Park, I walked into the room and there was a room full of parents. So I'm like, well, what we gonna do? And for me, that said, we gonna win this fight. We might not win the battle, but we're going to win the war. Because at the end of the day, we can take a hit and we can keep on going. But when we hit them, will they be able to take it? No, because there's no commitment. There's no investment. We just haven't hit them yet. Does that make sense? All right, so let me start reading. All right. So I'd like to share a little bit about who we are as a Kenwood Oakland Community Organization and how that's helped to shape the man who stands here before you today. COCO was started in 1965 by religious and community leaders who saw the need for African American working and low-income families to organize around critical issues such as restrictive covenants that denied us access to quality housing, better grocery stores, and good schools. So we are the oldest African American-led grassroots community organizing group in this city, and our base, about 750 strong, of African American families with an income of nothing to $38,000 a year are targeted for removal by the city of Chicago. So in other words, our neighborhood is the eye of the storm. every kick out poor people, get rid of poor people policy you can imagine. In every quality of life area we hit with every day. Who can relate to what I'm talking about? All right. Every day, our base is challenged with issues of affordable housing, lack of investment in youth, hunger, mistreatment of our seniors in senior homes, health and state and safety. This proud community, which was the home to Ida B. Wells, make some noise if you know the people I'm talking about. Ida B. Wells, Louis Armstrong, Harold Washington, Ramsey Lewis, Lou Rawls, Gwendolyn Brooks, Margaret Burroughs, who started the DuSable Museum for African American History in her house, right? Dr. Walter H. Dyett, who was the trainer of superstars, who trained Ramsey Lewis, who trained Eddie Harris, and other jazz greats. Will the Thrill Bynum, who plays for the Detroit Pistons, who was in our after-school program as a youth at Price Elementary School. Jennifer Hudson, Eddie Harris, Muddy Waters, Minnie Riperton. Y'all know Minnie Riperton, right? Y'all don't know nothing about no Minnie Riperton. Back down memory lane. Okay, that's Minnie Riperton, all right? And Sam Cooke. Minnie Riperton grew up on 39th and Cottage Grove. Sam Cooke went to Doolittle East Elementary School on 35th Street. They are the hood. And this neighborhood, this community, which is called one of the two black meccas in the United States, the great poet Margaret Walker in the poem For Our People talked about the impact of Harlem, New York, and Bronzeville in Chicago on the development of black people in the 20th century. But despite this proud legacy, despite this history, our base is targeted for removal. We have suffered through school closings, which started in Bronzeville in 1998, with the closing of schools as a result of the CHA Plan for Transformation, and accelerated in 2004 with the first leg of Renaissance 2010, has spread like a plague throughout and beyond the borders of the United States. Where's my sister Karen Royal at? You was just in New Zealand, right? Australia, and in Australia they closing schools, right? Absolutely. So this is not just a national issue, it is a global issue. But we recognize now that schools are being closed, turned around, and phased out in places like Ambler, Pennsylvania, and Wichita, Kansas. We have fought ferociously against this top-down corporate form of school intervention in our community, and because of that, we have a very adversarial relationship with the Chicago Public Schools and the city of Chicago. But I want y'all to understand that it has not always been that way. When Arnie Duncan first became the CEO of Chicago Public Schools in 2002, he spoke at our convention. And we were hopeful because of his history in our neighborhood. But we learned very soon that after we made every attempt to meet with them, follow their rules, jump through every hoop that they presented, that the truth is, in relation to school privatization in our communities, there is no inside-out game. There is no get in front of it. There is no just work with the system. No, there's greed, and our communities are to be consumed. These schools are to be sold, and our babies are the product. There is no limit to the greed. We know that at the end of the day, there's no violation that they won't commit. In my neighborhood, the closing of schools has coincided with the shutting down of the 21st District Police Station, and the homicide rate has jumped up over 300%. That's Chicago Police Department statistics. This same community lost Michael Reese Hospital and the Trauma Center at Providence Hospital, which was created by Dr. Daniel Hale Williams, who was the first doctor to perform successful surgery on the human heart. Despite that, they snatched the Trauma Center out of Providence Hospital. I just want to share something with you all that people don't talk about. I heard about the little sister Hadia Pendleton, right? All right. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The sister who was murdered a week after being at the president's inauguration. Hadia Pendleton got shot on 45th and Oakenwald. Providence Hospital was on 51st, right east of King Drive. Maybe a 7 or 8 minute drive from there. Because there was no trauma center, because there's no trauma center, they had to drive that sister all the way to Gary Comer Children's Hospital. Y'all follow me? On 76th Street. My only point being, and nobody's saying this, that communities should have access to those resources because we don't know whether that baby would have made it or not. One of my students that many of you all have heard about, Kevin Ambrose, was shot after he walked from his house on 48th and Prairie to pick his friend up at the train station. Kevin was picking his friend up and wanted to walk him back so he would be safe. This guy rolled up and just decided he was going to shoot Kevin. Kevin was in our day camp since he was 4 years old. We basically helped raise this little brother. Kevin was going to his sophomore year at Columbia College. This guy jumps out, chases Kevin through the vacant lot, and shoots him in the vacant lot. And my little brother lost his life. But there was no trauma center in the community that he could have gone to. They had to take him to John Stroger, to the county. And y'all know that once you go to the county, it ain't looking good. So the point being, this type of disinvestment is what we suffer in our communities. Y'all understand what I'm saying? That this is not about education. This is about what Dr. Pauline Lippman calls the right to the city. There's a war being waged on working and low-income communities of color, and we are indeed at a tipping point. So what you are seeing now in our communities is that people have had it. People are at a place where they are prepared to do what they were not prepared to do 3-4 years ago, and that is struggle for better education. So the question is, if the spirit is there amongst the people, and they may not know how to fight, but they want to fight, it's the job of the organizers to help our people learn what? How to fight. Right? If we don't, in this time, when you get thousands of people, when you get thousands of young people in Philadelphia walking out of school, where's Philly at? Where's Philly at? You got thousands of young people in Newark, New Jersey doing walkouts. You got young people and parents in Oakland occupying a school for 13 days. You got a teacher strike in Chicago that was inspired partly by a march on the mayor's house with 700, not everybody and their mama marching to the mayor's house, Brandon, but in 2012, 700 of us marched to that man's house and let him know, you might win the battle, but you ain't gonna win the war. See, organizing is not a sprint. It's not about picking an issue and getting a win. No. Because this is about the future of our people. This is what we recognize, that we are fighting for our existence in the city of Chicago. We are fighting to make sure that the Bud Billiken Parade is not in Harvey. For people in Chicago who know what I'm talking about. In our community, as the housing prices go up, as the basic institutions are disinvested in, our people leave. And when our people leave, they are replaced by interests for often white, middle-class, and upper-middle-class communities. In New Orleans, well, I'll get to New Orleans in a minute. I'm coming, sister. So, as stated before, we have dealt with school closings in Chicago as early as 1998. What flies under the radar of all the rhetoric about we must do something for the children, this is all for the kids, and we got to do something, is that what they have actively done is sabotage education for black and brown children in two ways. Either coming up with punitive policies that set our schools up for long-term failure, or the outright removal of resources from successful neighborhood schools. We got to say it, and we got to be willing to stand on it. Because as sure as I'm black and bald-headed, I done seen it. I'm saying it again. As sure as I'm black and bald-headed, I have lived it. And I'm about to give you a couple of examples so you know that I'm not up here talking crazy. But first, Chicago was the second major city in the United States to enact mayoral control, the first being Boston. In 1995, the state legislature gave Mayor Daley control over Chicago schools, and he moved quickly, hiring Paul Vallis as his CEO. Who heard of Paul Vallis? Can we get a boo? Can we get a boo? All right. Vallis's role was to sell the get tough on struggling schools rhetoric that would lay the groundwork for their policy agenda, which was to begin to put schools on probation if they did not meet certain testing gains from year to year. So that meant that if you didn't meet certain this is before No Child Left Behind. If you didn't meet certain testing gains, your schools will go on reconstitution or reorganization, which all makes me want to regurgitate, right? But that's what we were confronted with. And so school probation has been a setup for privatization. How many of you all in your cities can relate to what I'm saying about probation and those types of policies? Okay. Since 2000 in Chicago, the number of schools on probation have nearly tripled. Say it again. They started with 100 schools on probation. Now it's almost 300. all right? So the number of schools on probation haven't gone down, they've almost tripled. And when schools go on probation, often that means your school will soon be one of those schools on the hit list. And your school will be one of those schools that are taken, all right? Now, when schools go on probation, understand this. CPS takes the decision-making power away from local school councils and decides everything from the curriculum to the professional development, the ultimate authority on budget expenditures. In other words, the schools that they take over fail. That's sabotage to me, right? Hold on a second. I'll be back after these messages. Hey, brother, can you look in my bag and toss me? I got a blue towel in there. Folks that know me know I get hot, so. Thank you, sister. Who said that? I appreciate that. Don't be like, man, you burn up. Please don't say you burn up. See, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all got to forgive me, man, you know. My wife got me working out. My wife lost 120 pounds, man. Yeah, man, my wife is a beast, dude. My wife is a beast. She ain't no joke. So, you know, I back in the day, I was a football player, so my ego still make me want to think I'm a football player. So I still put the plates on there and be like, oh. The arthritis make me do something a little different, though. The author make me do something a little different. But my wife getting ready to run a marathon, Joe. Getting ready to run a marathon. She's running a marathon. I know y'all no, my wife had gotten sick and gained a lot of weight. And she, every day, runs about 6 miles. She told me the other day, we just talking. She's like, you know, I ran, we had the 12-mile run today, and I couldn't keep up with some of them. And I just looked, I said, do you realize what you just said to me? And so, yeah, so brother been working out, so I sweat even quicker than I used to. And I'm trying to find clothes, because this suit is a little loose. Am I all right, y'all? All right, all right. Thank you, because, you know, if we're going to beat these people, we got to be here to beat these people, right? All right. So, when schools go on probation, CPS takes the decision-making power away from local school councils. They decide everything, not some things, everything, through what they call networks. They used to be area offices. So Chicago is broken up. Jackson, help me understand. I see you in the cut back there, Jackson. Chicago is broken up, I think, into 27 different networks. Is that accurate? Something like that, right? The networks are like little school districts. So one of Chicago's networks could be just about the size of the Milwaukee school system. Y'all follow me? That's how big these networks are. They're little bureaucracies all within themselves. So the networks then make all the decisions. If you're on a local school council, you're pretty much an advisory group. So if they make all the decisions when your schools go on probation, if they make all the curriculum decisions, then who are the ones messing up the schools? In that order. Now, we don't I'm making that point because if you look in many of your cities and when your schools are facing punitive actions, they take the schools over. And when they take the schools over, they run the schools into the toilet. All right? Now, here's part two of what I was saying about school sabotage. Beethoven Elementary School on 47th and State Street in Chicago has traditionally served some of the most difficult neighborhoods in our city. Robert Taylor Homes, one of the largest housing projects in the world, used to be there. But Beethoven, as far back as I can remember, 1997, they were doing research studies on Beethoven, talking about why these schools stand out. The late, great Don Moore, one of the heroes of local school councils, did a study on Beethoven called Why These Schools Stand Out. In 2008, 82% of the children in Beethoven met or exceeded state standards. Now, we're not satisfied with 82, but if you got 82, I can see 90, right? So 82 is pretty good. Why did they do this? Because they had a dynamic principal, Ms. Gardner-Lewis. They had a kick-butt local school council. They had a veteran core teachers who trained the younger teachers. They had wraparound supports for the children. So they had a full-day medical clinic in the school and a boys and girls club, and the school stayed open till 8 o'clock every night. That's fact. Now, sound pretty good, right? What was CPS's response to this wonderful school? Give it more resources, hold them up as a model and have people do learning tours so they can see how to set up real community schools. That's what you would do, right? Here's what CPS did. They closed another performing school called Farron, right? It was about 3.5 blocks away. They moved over 350 children into Farron, and 3 years later, Beethoven scores at 58%. What is that? That's sabotage. I'll give you another example. Fuller Elementary School, where I learned how to work with children. When I first went to Fuller in 1991, and Barack will know I'm telling the truth, in 1991, 8% of the children met or exceeded state standards. They was on CNN for what's wrong with America's schools. There was corruption. They was doing some crazy stuff. The former principal of the school actually used to have, during the summer, pay her son like he was working at the school when he was in Atlanta. Right? So that's the type of stuff that was happening at Fuller School. In 1995, a woman named Laverne Bailey became the principal. She formed a community team. I was on that community transformation team. Veteran teachers, Ms. Phelps, all right, Mr. John Dandridge, and people in the community. Fuller, in 3 years, became a rising star school within CPS and a school of distinction. Arnie Duncan used to bring people to Fuller and say, this is how you transform a neighborhood school. Now, if you were a superintendent, I refuse to use the word CEO. If you were a superintendent and you had a neighborhood school that was taking off like this, what would you do, right? I would bring people there. I would say, man, let's give this school additional resources for their social center. Let's make sure that their student leadership development program, which is working, is supported, blah, blah, blah. That's not what they did. What they did is they made Fuller a receiving school for school closings. So in 2004, when Raymond closed, when Doolittle West closed, when Hardigan closed, Fuller received over 200 students, and the school went up in smoke. And they began to remove many of those critical resources that allowed us to take children to the United Nations and to the Passamaquoddy Native American Reservation in Maine and all the other type of stuff we were doing to inspire young people. So the school began to suffer. Then they removed Ms. Bailey, and they brought in another principal who was not as dynamic as Ms. Bailey was. Then they began to get rid of the veteran teachers. So they started offering people like John Dandridge early retirement and stuff like this. So Fuller ended up being a turnaround school. And guess who runs it now? The Academy of Urban School Leadership. What does that sound like to you? That's sabotage. And I think that in many cities, I know in New York, how many people we got here from New York? Well, we know that in New York, there was a dynamic program called the Student Success Centers that was done by the organization Make the Road New York. The Student Success Centers were sending almost 100% of the seniors to college. And what was the response to the school district? Take the money away from the student success. Anything to get them darkies and them brownies educated, I'm gonna say it, anything to get them educated, we're gonna snatch away from them. Anything that works, we're gonna take away. Anything. So, this is not just a Chicago problem. In New Orleans, Hurricane Katrina reminded us that to this day and to this system, our lives are not precious. After the trauma of one of the worst manufactured national disasters in our history, where well over 1,500 people lost their lives, the response was not to give our people post-traumatic stress counseling and rebuild New Orleans to meet the needs of the people already there. No, the response was to close the county hospital, shut down the public school system, and make New Orleans charter. Now today, 90% of the schools in New Orleans are charter, and 79% get a D or F grade from the state. That's right. And the best performing schools in New Orleans are the 10% that remain public schools, that are still with the New Orleans Parents School Board. In New York, after 10 years of school closings by Mayor Bloomberg, only 13% of Black and Latino students graduate college and career ready. We know that nationally, only 1 out of 5 charters outperform neighborhood schools. And right here in Chicago, since 2002, and this is according to Chicago Catalyst, December 7th, 2011, you can look it up, only 18% of the schools that have replaced closed schools are high performing. And of that 18%, half are selective enrollment. So let me say that another way, because that don't always resonate till you explain it. despite the fact that they can pick the children that they want to come to the school through selective enrollment tricks like lotteries, and despite the fact they can kick out whoever they want, because if a child makes their portfolio look less attractive, then they gotta go, as the late great Robin Harris said, they gotta go. If they make their portfolio look bad, despite those advantages, fewer than 1 in 5 of their schools are high performing. There's Dr. Charles Payne in the house. All right, Dr. Payne, brother, I'm gonna quote you. Hope I can quote you, brother. But Dr. Payne gave an amazing presentation to me, along with Jackson, at Jackson Potter. Put your hand up, Jackson, so the people can see you, at IIT. And Dr. Payne made the point that we spend so much time talking about charters when in reality they don't deserve the conversation. When in reality, and this don't mean that there aren't any good charters. This is not an anti-charter railing that I'm doing right now, but I'm making a point that the charter schools and really the whole privatization movement are mediocre interventions. They're not reform. They don't even deserve the word reform. We accept their branding because we don't know how to brand ourselves. Stop calling it reform. It's not reform. They're mediocre interventions that are only accepted because of the race of the children that are impacted. There's no way, we're in the house of the Lord, so I ain't gonna say what I was gonna say, but there's no way that you can take that type of mediocrity into Lincoln Park here, or the neighborhood you all are in right now, and implement it in this neighborhood, and the people would accept it, or it would be acceptable. It's accepted because of the perception of the children that are being impacted. And we gotta have the courage to call it and recognize it, right? So, one thing I just like to make this point, that so for a crisis in education created by the school districts and the interests that drive them, they are allowed to implement the solutions: close, turnaround, phase out, and charter expansion. Broker the responsibility of educating our children to private operators who care less about your input than the district does. Companies like Urban Prep, where they boast about placing 100% of their African-American graduates into college. Y'all ever heard of Urban Prep? All right. See, I don't work for them, so I can call them out. So they put the young brothers in ties, and they get, and they stand and they take the pictures and they say, we put 100% of our children into college. But they don't tell you that only 41% of the freshmen make it from freshman year to senior year. Say that again. Only 41% of the freshmen make it from freshman year to senior year, which means that they doing what the late, great Biggie Smalls, I won't say great, but great on the mic, but not great in this sense. But the late Biggie Smalls used to say, get money. That's what they doing. Everybody say, get money. That's what they're doing. And why am I saying that? Because anybody who makes your portfolio look less attractive, you get rid of. If this child has an IEP, you get rid of them. If this child has a reading disorder, you get rid of them. If this child is a discipline problem and he questions, you get rid of them. If this child can't pay the fines, you get rid of them. So at the end of the day, you can present your portfolio to CPS and it looks attractive. It looks good. And when it looks good, CPS gives you more contracts. And to me, there's an old African proverb to say the truth is simple. If it's complicated, it's a lie. It's no more complicated than that. Because when you look at what they produce, that's what they do. They push out at Phillips High School, which is the AUSL school. If you go on 39th Street right now, I'm willing to bet you will see young brothers standing out on 39th and King Drive with Phillips High School t-shirts on, because they've been pushed out. One of my former students from Doolittle East Elementary School, Brandon, graduated from Doolittle, went to Fuller, graduated from Doolittle, ended up going to Phillips, was getting bullied by a street organization called Suwu, which is one of these young cliques that are out here right now, because we don't have organized street gangs anymore. We got cliques. On every other block, there's a different clique, which is why there's no organization. Y'all follow what I'm talking about? So nobody, when you hear the police department talking about they got a handle on the gang violence, if you believe that, then I could dunk from the free throw line, if you believe that. All right? Because they don't. Because the old structure of the street organizations, which was negative, so nobody's saying it wasn't, has been destroyed. So what you have is you got leadership that's 14 and 19 on these blocks. And they form cliques that are loosely affiliated. That's why you can walk on one block and it's Young Money. You walk 2 blocks later, it's Suwu. So my point being, this young man was being bullied by Suwu. So he missed 9 days of school because he's afraid to come to school. Did they ever call his parent? Did they call a parent conference? But when he came back in January, he was disenrolled. That's what they do. So what's happening now is that parents all over the city who are being subjected to this are starting to raise their voice. So we see the problem as a simple one. Communities are not in control of the institutions that impact our quality of life. This is why we formed the Journey for Justice Alliance. So I want to give shots out to some of my people in the house right now. I know I got my people from New Orleans in the house. I got Karen Hopper Roll, make some noise. All right. We got Philadelphia Student Union in the house, make some noise. All right. Who else we got in the house? Is Daniel here from Empower DC yet? He here in spirit, all right? But we got a lot of people here from Journey for Justice, so make some noise for Journey for Justice Alliance, all right? As I said before, we are not just trying to stop school closings. We are committed to community-driven, research-based school improvement. In schools where the people directly impacted have significant voice, we won't have to struggle to get restorative justice or community schools in the building. We can stand together and fight for multiple assessments of student progress instead of just testing factories. We can fight for additional wraparound supports, increase student voice in the schools, parents as teacher aides, recess monitors, room managers, accountability council leaders, and other roles. Because our schools are controlled by interests who are not impacted by, but profit from our suffering, we have an uphill battle. So in the Journey for Justice, we see the lack of education opportunity as a civil and human rights issue. We recognize that the lack of opportunity is a human rights issue, and we have the right to have a measure of control over the institutions that impact our daily lives. To deny us that right is to put our future in someone else's hands. That's unacceptable to us. So we want a few things. We want sustainable school transformation to replace school closings, turnarounds, phase-outs, restarts, and charter expansions as an intervention strategy for struggling schools. Sustainable school transformation was a proposal developed by 35 different community organizations in partnership with the Annenberg Institute for School Reform out of Brown University, where we said that all schools have to have 3 main components. 1, a strong focus on school culture, curriculum, and staffing. 2, wraparound supports for every child, and I'm simplifying it. And 3, meaningful partnership with the community so that the community can have ownership and accountability for the school's success. But if schools are foreign institutions in our neighborhood, then the people won't defend those schools. If parents walk into school and they treat it like they stole something, then they won't fight for those schools. Y'all follow me? But if the schools are community institutions, like Beethoven was, what I told you about, those people will fight for those schools. If young people in the schools are able to organize projects and leadership development programs that speak to what their vision is, then they will not let someone just come and take it away because they built it. But as long as these schools are foreign institutions controlled by interests who don't have a horse in the race, then we don't have a shot. As long as our school districts are controlled by appointed school boards who are made up of people. Do y'all understand that on the Chicago Public Schools school board was a woman named Penny Pritzker? Y'all know who the Pritzker family is? Somebody yell out what hotels they own. So Penny Pritzker's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren ain't gonna have to work. Y'all hear me right? All right. So I don't work 2 checks, I'm in trouble. All right. But Penny Pritzker's great-great-grandchildren ain't gonna have to work. And she was on the school board making decisions for our children. David Vitale, who's the school board president, sat on the school board and went to a meeting when we were fighting to stop our schools from closing. Ministers who had $1 million contracts with Mayor Rahm Emanuel I want y'all to hear me, went to the halfway house and in front of the liquor store and gave African-American men and women who were desperate $25 and prefabricated signs to come to school closings meetings and say, close these schools. until when the people was there, they didn't realize what they, in many cases, some of the people left. All right? But the fact of the matter was David Vitale presided over the meeting. And when we stepped to him, he had a smirk on his face. And we told him, that's the last meeting you're going to be able to do in our neighborhood. But the point I'm making to you, that's who sits on these school boards. So as long as these people control school boards in many of our cities, we don't have a shot. Because at the end of the day, are they accountable to us? No. At the end of the day, they're accountable to the interests who put them there in the first place. So we want swift investigation into our Title VI civil rights complaints. Several cities in the Journey for Justice Alliance have filed Title VI civil rights complaints over school closures and privatization, and we want quick investigations on those civil rights complaints. We want the resignation of Arnie Duncan as the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Education. We want a national moratorium on all closings, turnarounds, phase-outs, restarts, and charter expansion. And lastly, we want a face-to-face meeting with President Barack Obama to discuss the impact of these issues and our recommendations. So brothers and sisters, we want to invite you to stand with the Journey for Justice Alliance and the Alliance of Education Justice on August 28th and 29th. In commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, we are organizing education as a civil and human rights actions in no fewer than 25 U.S. cities. We want to send a message on that day that the people directly impacted will no longer accept racist, discriminatory policies in a country that presents itself as the light of the world. If you want more information about this action, you can talk to me or anybody that's here for Journey for Justice. I know Hiram is back there. Put your hand up, Hiram, so the people see you from the Philadelphia Student Union. We want to invite you all to work with us on this, brothers and sisters, because we feel like a campaign to remove Arnie Duncan is not the end all, by no means, but it sends a direct message that the people won't change in education. And we think it's something that people that work on different things can easily mobilize around. Because if you care about community schools, if you care about restorative justice, if you care about teacher quality, if you or support for teachers, if you care about school closings, at the end of the day, race to the top does not make that plausible for what you want to do. Does that make sense? So we think it's something we can come together around. And if you want to get with us, come to our assembly on Sunday and we'll talk more about it. Last thing I want to say, and then I'll get off the stage. I saw Tyra doing the brother hurry up thing. So let me make it quick. Y'all okay? Okay. Out the tire, woo, man. Can I get some? What was that? All right. So at the end of the day, we should not as a community organizer who has often had to organize around issues where it seemed like there was no hope. I make the point all the time about when Chicago was going to get the Olympics. There was a lot of people who were saying, just say no to the Olympics, but they didn't live in the neighborhood. And the point I made to them was that if the Olympics come and we don't have something in place to protect our members, then our members will be pushed out by the Olympic Village and things of that nature. So in honoring our base, we fought for a community benefits agreement. Everybody and their mama said we was crazy. They're not going to do that. Patrick Ryan, the owner of Aon Insurance, one of the richest men in Chicago, sat with us in a meeting and said, I don't care how much protesting you do, you'll never get a community benefits agreement. But on August 27th, 2008, that Mark signed a community benefits agreement because we sent 500 people to Aon Insurance over and over and over again. When the International Olympic Committee came here, we sent 300 people to that piece and daily said our talking points on the stage. And the lesson I got from that is that the giants are not just the people that we talk about in history. You know, the giants are the people every day whose names we don't know, whose faces we don't see. The giants. So I held up my sister April and other people, and there were other folks who did this too. There were brothers and sisters from TSJ who just, who stood up and said, we'll get arrested. What was it, November the 2nd? November the 2nd, 2012, said, we'll get arrested fighting for our schools. And got arrested at City Hall. It's the people that are not activists, people that are just mothers and fathers who are ready to fight for something better. And so what I would say to us, brothers and sisters, is that we are the giants, that the civil rights movement is in this room. It's in this room. If And don't take this, my understanding, it ain't how many you got, it's who you got. All right? Now, if you're real, and you see other people that's willing to do something to make this world better than you left it, I don't care what color you are, I don't care about your sexual orientation, I don't care about how much money you got. If it's real, then I'm with you. But if you're full of it, and I'm going to make this statement because I feel it. If you're full of it, if you in it just for the accolades, if you in it just to see that you're smarter than somebody else, then you are more trouble than you worth in this fight. You're more trouble than you worth. So what we need are folks who are willing to sit down and figure out how we're going to work together. Not if we're going to work together, how we going to do this. Because how can we sit up and watch this happen on our watch? How can we sit up and watch this happen? How can when I'm on 43rd Street and a brother who went to Price, who's now being forced to go to National Teachers Academy, where only 12% of the 8th graders graduated. Only 12% of the 8th graders graduated. The rest of them little brothers got to go to summer school. And they come up to me and say, when are they going to open my school up? I don't run from that. I own it. And it makes me a better organizer and a stronger organizer. And it makes me jump up at 3 in the morning and figure out how the hell we going to do this. It makes me struggle with it. So I want to say to you, brothers and sisters, it's an honor to be here with you today. It's an honor to be here this weekend. Tyra, thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully my message meant something. You know, our brother can go off sometime, but you know how I am. So I hope we're okay. And I would say this weekend, brothers and sisters, let's figure out not if we're going to work together, but how we're going to work together. And I just want y'all to repeat something after me. And this is something that my teacher, my elder, I'm going to say his name because I love him, Baba Fundishi and Patanishi, an organizer from Detroit, Michigan, who taught me everything I know. All right? When I was a man-child, he saw something in me and said, man, I'm going to help you be the organizer you want to be. He taught me something. He said that what you can accomplish by yourself is multiplied 1,000-fold by working with those with a common vision. What you can accomplish by yourself is multiplied 1,000-fold by working with those with the same vision. So I want y'all to repeat after me. I am because we are, therefore I am. If we believe that, then as they say in the old school, we cooking with gas. All right? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. No education, no life. All right, I just want to give some love to my brother. I just peeped him, man. Jonathan, put your hand up, brother. All right, now I'm going to share something with y'all. Jonathan, can I put our business out in the street? Okay, not the drug use, I'll leave that. Okay. But Jonathan is the national director for the Alliance of Education Justice. Now, here's how Negroes could act, and here's how brothers act. Y'all with me? I know, Tara, I'm tripping a little bit, but this is how Negroes could act like this. A bunch of cities been wanting to fight school closings, and we decided maybe we should start the Journey for Justice Alliance. So we could see it as competitive, and Jonathan could be like, well, telling the funders, you know, G2, a little wild, he'll run up on the mayor in a minute. I don't know if you want to roll with him or anything, right? But what we've done as brothers is figured out, number one, how we going to create this space for all these organizations who come from different places to operate, and how we going to build AEJ and build the Journey for Justice, because it's enough work for everybody. And I want to give that brother praise out here in front of everybody for his maturity and for his values. See, I've worked with some people who fronted like they was with the people. I've worked with some people who did that. I've worked with people who said that they was with the struggle and ended up being agents. I've worked with those type of people. But I also work with brothers, and I want to recognize that brother at this time. So peace.